Hey everybody, I've done several iterations of this video that have all ended up being overly long, so I'm going to quickly summarize a lot of things to get to my actual point. As many of you know, Marilyn Manson has been embattled in the last year due to accusations made by Evan Rachel Wood, his former fiance, that she was raped, abused, and submitted to other acts of domestic battery and sexual assault by Manson during their relationship, um, and initially I was 100% on the side of Evan Rachel Wood, which was a very bitter pill for me to swallow because I Marilyn Manson has always been, I've always been a ride or die Marilyn Manson fan. Love Marilyn Manson. He made my teenage years tolerable, survivable, livable. And and I've always respected him as an artist, as a creative force, as an intellectual on so many levels. I have always been a tremendous Marilyn Manson fan. Initially, though, I believed that the evidence was all on Evan Rachel Wood's side. I 100% was supportive of her. And to give you an idea of how supportive I was in this situation, I have various friends that work in the music industry, and one of them works in the orbit of a lot of people who were people in bands and connected to bands in the late 90s, early 2000s, alternative metal, new metal, industrial metal kind of movements that Marilyn Manson is associated with, emerging from. And I'd always told him, I said, if you hear about anything opening up with Manson, let me know. If he ever needs a guitarist, let me know. When these accusations came out, I contacted that friend of mine and said, no, take me out of, if not that I was ever seriously being considered for that, but take me out of the running. I no longer want that gig. So I, however weak of a connection, a job lead that it was, I denied myself that opportunity for the sake of solidarity with Evan Rachel Wood. Time went on, time has gone on, and her story has gotten increasingly difficult to believe. I really truly wanted to be on her side, but more and more new facts would be emerging throughout that made it difficult for me to continue taking her side in all of this. And now Marilyn Manson has filed a lawsuit against Evan Rachel Wood and her her current collaborator, a woman named Ashley Gore, has filed a lawsuit against both of them, seeking damages and an injunction against the two of them to prevent future wrongful conduct. That piece of legal documentation, the lawsuit itself, is something that Manson has made public, and I will include a link to it in the crotch bar if you want to read it. It is 28 pages of extremely, extremely damning accusations and evidence, corroborating evidence, against Evan Rachel Wood. Manson's requesting a trial by jury. First of all, regardless of who is right or wrong in this situation, good for him for doing that, because that is where these things belong, not being adjudicated in the court of public opinion. So, my position, initially I scrapped all interest in or support for Marilyn Manson. Then I was loosely of the opinion that, of separating art from artist, and saying that it was okay to embrace Marilyn Manson and still condemn his actions should they be proven to be factual, and again, that if he has broken the law, he needs to go to jail or be appropriately punished in coordination with his, or in balance with his actions. That I still stand by. That claim I still make. That I still stand by. But as all of this has started to come out, I really can no longer take the side of Evan Rachel Wood. That is not to say that is not to suggest in any way, shape, or form that survivors or claimants ought not to be believed in these situations. Indeed, I believe that anyone coming forward in one of these situations should be their claims should be taken seriously. They should be handled with care and with compassion. But it is still necessary to get all of the relevant information. And what is presented here against Devin Rachel Wood is unbelievably damning. Anyway, that's not really the point that I want to make. And I want to say I'm only at this point tentatively on the side of Marilyn Manson in all of this, simply because his claims still also need to be adjudicated in the court of law, and I'm waiting to see what emerges from it, because that is the appropriate and mature thing to do. But what I really wanted to talk about was cancel culture. And there have been numerous calls to remove all of the music of Marilyn Manson from streaming services, from record stores, from everything else in light of these accusations. And similar claims have also been made against, that has been made concurrently with similar statements regarding the music of R. Kelly. But then people are also carrying it further, saying that people like David Bowie and John Lennon and Ted Nugent and a number of other legendary rock stars and musicians ought to have their music removed because they've done shitty things in their personal lives. And this goes even further to include the movies of Roman Polanski and Woody Allen and things like that. On and on. Now, I'm not going to wade through each of the accusations against all of the people that I just mentioned. R. Kelly, of course, is unquestionably guilty, and that has been more than thoroughly established in the court of law. But I'm not going to go through my particular thoughts on each one of those cases. But suffice it to say, what I want to talk about is this impulse to remove things from public consumption because the people who created them were revealed to have done bad things. The problem with that is that it is really a very, I think it is indicative of a real sickness in society. It's the witch-burning mindset, the mindset of, the mindset of book burning, more precisely, of book burning, of purging undesirable, but it even goes beyond book burning, because book burning is only done to purge undesirable ideas. This is going beyond even whether or not the ideas and the contributions themselves are valid, and destroying potentially valid contributions simply because the people who created them revealed themselves to be shitty people. And the thing is, we really don't gain anything by doing that. There was a documentary, speaking of Woody Allen, there was a documentary called Allen v. Farrow that came out on HBO Max recently, in the recent years, that was a horribly one-sided hit piece against Woody Allen. And it's like, it's like, look, you have, whatever position you take, you have the responsibility as journalists to present it in an even-handed manner. That made no attempt at being even-handed. There is a video on YouTube a video series on YouTube called "By the Way, Woody Allen is Innocent" that came out before that documentary, but it serves as a good counterbalance. I'm not going to get heavily into that right now. Watch both of them and come to your own conclusions. That said, in the Allen v. Farrow documentary, there is this montage, the sequence where they show this montage of public figures, newscasters, and public intellectuals, and other creative people, and that sort of thing, in different, being quoted about the famous alleged sexual abuse of Dylan Farrow by Woody Allen, talking about it, saying that they are opposed to what he did, but that they believe that his works are of tremendously significant artistic merit and should not be removed from public consumption for that reason. And they do something really sleazy and underhanded in that documentary in presenting that montage, because they're not just presenting the montage for the sake of raising discussion about the question of whether or not you can separate art from the artist. There's this tacit implication in the context in which they present it that all of these people are using that as none of these people are sincere in that opinion, and that they are all using that as a false front and an excuse to remain cold-hearted and indifferent to the suffering of someone who's obviously been mistreated. And quite frankly, I think that attitude needs to stop. We need to start taking people at their word when they present statements like that, unless you have something that would legitimately show that each one of those people was in fact making that statement as a false front. If you have something else they've said that would contradict that, then it is extraordinarily dishonest to just assume that that's what they're doing. But anyway, bringing that back around, we find ourselves time and again facing these public outcries, these public demands for different media to be purged from streaming services and from record stores and that kind of thing because of accusations that are made. And I want to go to an example of cancel culture, long before we knew it as cancel culture, actually accomplishing a goal that it set out to accomplish, actually succeeding in canceling an artist. And you will probably, unless you are heavily inundated with the minutia of heavy metal history as I am, you probably will not know who this artist is, but it was a band that was really and truly canceled by public outcry. And that is a band called Badlands. And Badlands was the project created by Jakey Lee after he left Ozzy Osbourne's band. And when he started Badlands, he recruited a singer named Ray Gillen. Ray Gillen was a rising star in the heavy metal community. Concurrently to Badlands, he was working on an album with Black Sabbath, and as their vocalist as well. And the thing that was not known publicly at the time was that Ray Gillen was not only HIV positive, but had progressed into the stages of full-blown AIDS. And Ray Gillen did something that was unbelievably heinous, which was, knowing full well that he had AIDS, he continued having unprotected sex with copious amounts of groupies. He infected women, and women died as a direct result of his negligence, his, dare I say, malevolent and heinous negligence. What he did was absolutely horrible and inexcusable. And something and by the way, there was actually a Victims of Ray Gillen coalition put together in for litigative efforts against him. But since these women really and truly suffered and died because of his arrogant disregard for human decency. And as a result, the Black Sabbath album he sang on was re-released with a different singer, and the Badlands albums were removed from sale and distribution altogether. And the question arises, what does that do for Ray Gillen's victims? How are they benefited? How are the victims themselves benefited by doing that? It's not even, we can't even make the shallow claim that, it's about holding people accountable, because Ray Gillen died of AIDS-related complications in the early 90s. So he is now irrelevant to the discussion. He's removed from it completely. So how does this benefit his victims or the families of his victims or anything like that? I think that a better solution, and this has been posited by other people elsewhere, but a better solution would be keep those albums in distribution, keep selling them, and take Ray Gillen's share of the royalties and give them to AIDS-related charities, give them to his survivors or the estates of his survivors, or the estates of his victims and that sort of thing. Give the money to AIDS research, something like that, where it could be used proactively. Because the simple reality is, the two Badlands albums are fucking amazing music. Jakey Lee does some of the best guitar playing of his career. He and Ray Gillen do some extraordinary songwriting. And on top of that, for as much as Ray Gillen is a vile, horrible, despicable human being, he is also an unbelievably excellent singer. Everything about his technique is spot on. Everything about his voice, everything about his projection, his vibrato, his falsetto, his vocal fry, everything he invokes in his voice is stunning and spot on. You're talking about, there is what he did to those women is not only vile but tragic, but there is another tragedy in all of that, which is that we were deprived of truly amazing artistic contributions by someone who, again, was an unbelievably shitty human being, but had things to contribute artistically. So my response, my suggestion for a compromise to all of this is that if and only if one of these people who is accused is found convicted of what they did in a court of law, in that case, I think it would be a reasonable measure to redirect their portion of the royalties. And I'm talking about in the case of someone like R. Kelly, where he is now in prison, take his royalties and give them, use it to create a support fund for the survivors of what he did to them, or donate it to domestic or sexual abuse programs and that sort of thing, something like that. Put the money towards something positive rather than just canceling it altogether. Because here's the thing: when I was when I was going through swallowing my bitter pill about Marilyn Manson, I, like a lot of people, watched the video, went back and rewatched the video for Heart-Shaped Glasses, because that's the one that Evan Rachel Wood did with Manson. And I was scrolling through the comments. I don't remember if it was that video or I clicked off to a couple of others, but I came upon this comment that really spoke to me in all of that, which was, this guy said that he said no matter what Marilyn Manson did, he would not stop listening to Manson's music and not stop loving it, because Marilyn Manson's music specifically had been there for him when to help him get through the time in his life when he was seriously contemplating suicide. And I could, for whatever shitty things Manson may have done, I can never in good conscience tell that guy that he is, I could never in good conscience tell that guy that he, that he has to give up something that stopped him from committing suicide. That I don't think that that's a reasonable trade-off to make. So that is my proposed solution to as for a compromise between the people who want to see the people who want to see people in positions of power held accountable for their abuses, and the people who want to still be able to enjoy the art that they like, irrespective of the people, the vile behavior of the people who created it. Because is to take the money and take the money that would have gone to those people, provided that the truth of their actions can be adjudicated in a court of law, and take the money that would have gone to them and give it to survivors, give it to abuse victims, that sort of thing. Even that could have the unintended consequences of people making bogus abuse claims to try to get at the royalty funds of these major artists or something like that. That's another question. But what I'm saying is, do something proactive with it rather than just erasing it from the culture. Because the thing is, there's I think the psychology of people who want to erase the art from the culture when this happens, I think what they want to do is try to say, oh, we're better than that. We're not going to let that be a part of our culture. But really, the real thing, I think, if you want to say you're better than that, the real thing is to say, you know what? We don't live in a world of absolute good and absolute evil. Good people can do horrible things and bad on occasion, and bad people can do good things on occasion. And that it warrants knowing that it speaks to our better nature as a society, to our higher nature as a society, if we can separate the art from the artist, if we can say that a good thing has emerged from something, or not necessarily from something negative, but in spite of something horribly negative. And I'll give you the ultimate example of that, the one that I hope would give everybody pause, and I'll leave you with this. A couple of years ago, I was arguing with this person I knew about Martin Luther King. And this person I knew, well, I'm not identifying obviously, but this person was trying to tell me that Martin Luther King was actually a horrible human being. And he said, well, you know, Ralph David Abernathy claimed that he saw Martin Luther King beat up a prostitute. And I said, okay, let's stop for a minute and, just for the sake of discussion, entertain the idea that that's true. Are you going to say that King's legacy ought to be erased from history because of that? Are you going to say that him doing that, which is and again, we have nothing but hearsay to go on, but if that is true, are you legitimately going to say that the "I Have a Dream" speech ought to be canceled and removed from public consumption? Are you legitimately going to say that King's heroic actions in the protests of the Montgomery bus boycott ought to be somehow purged from history or rendered invalid? No. Martin Luther King did incredible things and incredibly important things that were to a benefit not just of the black community, but of humanity as a whole. He did unbelievably important things that transcend this shitty thing that he's accused of doing. And if we can extend that grace and that courtesy to Martin Luther King, then certainly we can extend it to everybody else, which I think is what King would have wanted. So I'll leave you with that thought. Take care.